Hi everyone, today we'll be going through the stock analysis for Qualcomm, ticker symbol QCOM, where the company specializes in semiconductors for mobile communication. This will be the table of content for this analysis. Part 1, the company overview of Qualcomm, followed by Part 2, the business analysis, followed by Part 3, their financial analysis, and lastly, we'll end it off with Part 4, the pricing analysis. Okay, for the first part, the company overview of Qualcomm. We'll be going through the brief history of the company, where it is founded back in July 1985 and is currently one of the leading semiconductor manufacturers in mobile communication worldwide. Currently, Qualcomm generates their revenue from three different streams, which are as follows: Qualcomm CDMA Technologies, which is their semiconductor business; Qualcomm Technology and Licensing; and lastly, Qualcomm Strategic Initiatives. Next, we'll be moving on to part 2, which is the business analysis for Qualcomm. The first thing that we'll be talking about is the business model of Qualcomm. The first of which is their Qualcomm CDMA Technologies. This is currently Qualcomm's biggest segment, which generates up to 75% of the company's yearly revenue. This segment is basically the semiconductor business where Qualcomm develops and supplies integrated circuits and system software that are utilized in majority of the enormous growth industries such as AI and robotics, Internet of Things, autonomous cars, smart devices, home network, as they are currently one of the leading company in the 5G wireless technologies. Currently, majority of their revenue from these segments are from selling their semiconductors or chipsets to smartphones manufacturers such as Apple, Samsung, Oppo, and many others. One of their product example is their Snapdragon series, which are highly integrated and mobile optimized system on a chip that provides advanced application, graphics, and AI processing capabilities. Their Snapdragon series are currently offered on various different platforms such as mobile, computing, XR, and 5G modems. Next, we'll talk about the potential 5G and Internet of Things market that Qualcomm can tap into. And as I mentioned earlier, Qualcomm is currently focusing on two technologies, which are the 5G and artificial intelligence. And now, we'll talk about the potential of the 5G and Internet of Things market that Qualcomm can tap into with their technologies. In my opinion, once the 5G network and Internet of Things become more established in the future, where things are more interconnected with each other, like how smartphones are able to connect with majority of the smart devices these days, we will begin to see this segment of Qualcomm become more profitable provided that they stay ahead with their innovation in their 5G technology. Now, we'll take a look at how their products can be implemented in the 5G and Internet of Things market. One of the potential applications is that it can minimize road accidents through intelligent smart cities, whereby road accidents can be minimized through communication between devices such as autonomous car, traffic lights, or even smartphones from pedestrians to notify of potential hazards. Next, we'll take a look at another of Qualcomm's business model, which is their Qualcomm Technology Licensing. This is the segment where Qualcomm grants license or otherwise provides rights to use portion of their intellectual property portfolio, which includes certain patent rights essential in the manufacturing process, sales, and use of certain wireless products. And Qualcomm will generate revenue from all the licenses and patent rights sold to other companies. Moving on, we'll take a look at the market share that Qualcomm commands in the application processor market. As we can see from the graph here, Qualcomm currently holds the largest market share of 29% in application processor. Currently, Qualcomm processors are featured in smartphone brands such as Samsung Galaxy, Google Pixel, Xiaomi, OnePlus, and many others. Lastly, for the business analysis of Qualcomm, we'll talk about the potential risks of Qualcomm, which I have identified two. First of which is their licensing and patent issues. One example is the major lawsuit case between them and Apple, which spanned over 2 years from 2017 to 2019. The lawsuit started with Apple stating that Qualcomm did not give them a fair licensing term for its processor technology and have unfairly insisted on charging royalties for technologies they have nothing to do with. This is a major concern for Qualcomm, as Apple is not the only company so far that went public to criticize Qualcomm for such unfair patent licensing practice. And due to the lawsuit, Qualcomm QTL revenue performance and net profit for fiscal year 2018 was heavily impacted as a result. Moving on to the second potential risk that I foresee Qualcomm might face in the future is the competitive market that they operate in. And as mentioned earlier, semiconductor business only allows one winner. Therefore, for Qualcomm to continue to command their leading market share in the industry, they will have to continue to innovate their product offerings, or they will risk losing out the majority of the market share, which will then heavily impact their business. Moving on to part 3, which is the financial analysis for Qualcomm. First, we'll take a look at the yearly revenue performance of Qualcomm. As you can see here, Qualcomm revenue have yet to recover from the dip in their yearly revenue from fiscal year 2015, but there are signs of recovery with compound annual growth rate of 2.93% from fiscal year 2017 to fiscal year 2019. Next, we'll take a look at the quarterly revenue performance of Qualcomm. As you can see from the graph here, their quarterly performance have been quite inconsistent as they are heavily affected by seasonality and fluctuation in consumer demands for devices. The huge spike in quarter 3 of 2019 was due to the dispute being settled with Apple back in April 2019, which resulted in Apple signing a multi-year chipset agreement with Qualcomm. Next, we move on to the earnings per share performance for Qualcomm, and as you can see from the graph here, their performance have been quite consistent apart from fiscal 2017 and fiscal 2018, which is due to the dispute with Apple, and since then they have recovered from the dip in fiscal 2019 after the dispute was settled. Next, we'll take a look at the cash flow performance of Qualcomm. As you can see here, the operating cash flow performance of Qualcomm has been relatively consistent, which is a good sign for any business as it signifies their ability to generate cash from their core business model. However, one major concern I have is their spending on investing cash flow, which as mentioned earlier, semiconductor industry is a very competitive market, and to stand out from their competitor, they will have to constantly innovate to stay ahead. Lastly, for the financial analysis, we'll take a look at the 6 financial tests of Qualcomm. As you can see here, they managed to pass all of the tests except for the debt to equity ratio, which we want it to be less than 2, but for Qualcomm case is 5.71. Now, we move on to the last part of Qualcomm analysis, which is the pricing analysis. And as you can see here, Qualcomm price of $115.47 as of this recording is considered as overvalued based on the 3 pricing model, which are the discounted cash flow model, price to earning ratios, and price to book ratio. And lastly, we'll go through the summary of this analysis. In conclusion, Qualcomm is currently a leading company in terms of their market share in the application processor industry and their 5G advancement. Their business is also operating in a huge potential market in terms of 5G and Internet of Things. However, their licensing and patent issue may hinder their business progression. For their financial aspect, their revenue and net profit in fiscal year 2017 and 2018 was heavily impacted by the lawsuit with Apple. However, they do have consistent operating cash flow over the past 5 years, but the lack of investing cash flow might be a concern. Finally, they are considered as overvalued based on all 3 pricing models. To summarize, personally, I will not invest in Qualcomm as of now, but I will put it in my watch list. And with that, we have come to the end of this analysis. Thank you.